Welcome back to Conversations on Reference. My name is Simon Aristeguieta, and we have a new season, 2026. For this new season, I have decided that I'm going to focus most of my attention to two topics or two specialties in librarianship that are dear to me. One is reader's advisory, and the second one is multicultural librarianship. These are two areas that I have worked during my professional life, and I think they are two crucial areas or specialties in what we call the area of reference. For this year, my main goal is to come up with a manual of dissemination of world narrative. Okay? The idea is that libraries, especially small and medium-sized libraries, uh, are able or introduce and disseminate world literature to American users, to the American community. Okay? So, how do we do that? Well, maybe in large systems, they have specialized librarians. But in smaller and medium-sized libraries, as I have talked before about that, resources are very limited. And in that regards, one of the main resources or the main resources that is us librarians, we are doing many roles that we don't get to become specialists in one area, such as multicultural librarianship or international narrative and so on. So we must find other strategies to become familiar with other narrative. And what do I mean by narrative? But I what but I what I mean by narrative are uh, uh, works of art, written works of art, novels, stories, fiction, nonfiction, different genres of books. And I consider myself very knowledgeable on what I call Ibero American literature. When I say Ibero American, I'm trying to uh, signal that our culture in South and Central America uh, comes from the Iberian Peninsula. So it's Portuguese and Spanish plus African and indigenous culture. In that regards, Ibero-American culture is a mestizo culture. Ibero means the cultures of the Iberian Peninsula, and American means indigenous American culture. That's what we are. I know, I wouldn't say I'm an expert, but I know our narrative, and I enjoy that narrative. What I have done this year, because I want also to design a course on Ibero-American narrative. So I have read and listened audiobooks on tra- all of translations to the English language of great works of narrative from South and Central America. Because the idea, of course, is to present to the big American audience works of literature translated to English. We cannot ask anybody to read in Spanish or to read in French or in Japanese or in Korean or in Arabic. Okay. So we have to have good translations. In the case of the course that I'm designing, it is easier for me because I am familiar with that literature. But what about if I wanted to explore and disseminate works of literature from the Middle East, or from Japan, or from Korea, or from India, or from Iraq, or from Croatia? Well, I don't have any reference. I don't know any literature from those places. And even less, I don't know any translations of good literature from those places. Okay? So for me, designing the uh, grad course on Ibero American narrative, it's a easier task, but I couldn't do the same for other narrative. So that gave me the idea that I have to come with a set of instruction, what I call a manual, on disseminating world literature, any world literature, from any cultural tradition. And that's what I'm going to focus this year's librarianship attention, my attention, in developing that manual. So any librarian who is interested in these areas of reader advisory and multicultural librarianship can develop and deploy a program on a specialized or multicultural literature. There are many strategies to do that. First, you can consult catalogs. You can talk to experts. You can talk to other librarians, to university professors who teach in modern languages and who teach multicultural education. You can contact librarians from those cultures, etc., etc., just to have an idea of at least the titles on authors that are relevant for that culture. Secondly, you have to find works that has been translated to English, and they have to be good translations. Another strategy could be talk to your community members. Maybe you have in your community people, persons that come from that culture, uh, people who grew up in that culture, and those people that we have in every community, well, they are crucial in helping the librarian or the library to put together that program in French literature, German literature, Croatian literature, Egyptian literature, Indian literature, Japanese literature, etc. So that's what I want to achieve this year. The first part will be to develop a course on Ibero-American narrative, and the secondly and more difficult task is to write a manual. So any librarian and any public library in the U.S. can develop and deploy a program on international narrative. Now, why do I think that is important? First, and I think this is something that we librarians must never forget, libraries are not anymore your physical building and your physical collection. Libraries is a universal institution that is connected through electronic means to the whole world. We are an interconnected institution. And unlike other institutions, public libraries are connected by information. We are information centers. We are knowledge centers. And we have sisters and brothers institutions that are alike all over the world. And we even have an international federation of libraries. So that's another resource that we can use for that. But even more, the idea is that as a universal institution, we have to make sure that our community enjoys and learns from other cultures. And of course, I'm going to work here in the US, but I would be doing the same if I were in Spain or if I were in Colombia or if I were a librarian in Croatia or in Egypt. I would like to introduce my community members, my users, to other cultures. And what is the best way to introduce your community to other cultures but literature? Things that they can enjoy, that they can understand. And of course, in that program that the library will plan and develop and deploy, there's music involved, there may be theater involved, there may be, of course, cooking and food involved too, right? So the idea is that we try to immerse our community in that culture through that program. And so the task of writing that manual is not a simple one because it gets very complicated. And I'm looking at different aspects that I have to take into consideration when writing that manual. A manual that will serve, as I said, small and medium-sized libraries in the US. So the idea is that we in the US enjoy other cultures, that through reading their narrative, we understand how they see the world, how they experience the world. And it doesn't have to be, it has to be, no, it doesn't have to, it has to be enjoyment, entertainment, and cultural awareness, and cultural dissemination, and cultural sharing. Okay. Imagine, for example, if in that program we can have now, as I said, because we are an interconnected institution, we can have a librarian from another country, or a professor from another country, or a teacher, or a community leader talking to us in our program through Zoom, and we can share that with those in the community who are enjoying that readers advisory and disseminating narrative universal narrative program, and they can come and visit us through Zoom, for example, and they can have a talk. We can ask questions. They can provide a bibliography that we can read, and so on. Imagine that. Imagine how rich would be the library experience. Imagine that happening in small public libraries, in rural libraries. I see I see so many possibilities of having this kind of program in where we as Americans and people from other countries will get a will get an experience of sharing and of being multicultural. Okay, that to me is it's very important, and that may have byproducts like international understanding and so on. I don't want to go and think like this is all we have to do to understand the world around us. I'm just interested in that my users in my library get familiar with other narrative and other works of arts, like novels and stories, short stories, poems, etc. Okay, and then we can add, like I said, we can add dance, we can add music, we can add cooking, we can add painting, we can have talks, we can invite guests that can be present in our community, like members of that community, or we can have them by Zoom visiting us. So During this year, I'm going to be developing these ideas. I'm still working in an outline for this year's podcast conversations on reference. And of course, like always, I welcome your opinions, your critiques, your ideas, so I can incorporate them in my podcast. So, welcome back again to Conversations of Reference 2026. And this is the theme or the topic that we are going to explore this year. Thank you so much.